EU leaders have announced a roadmap to restore the border-free Schengen zone by the end of the year. The passport-free travel area has been in jeopardy as countries impose temporary border restrictions in the face of millions of refugees and migrants making their way into Europe. The European Commission wants to lift those restrictions by December. It's estimated that more than 17,000 refugees arrive in Europe every week. There are 26 countries in the Schengen zone. Since September of last year, 8 of them have introduced some form of border control. On Friday morning, Denmark extended controls on its borders with Germany for a further month. And now Croatia, which will be joining the Schengen zone soon, is hoping to amend its own laws to allow the government to deploy the army along its border. Well, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has been speaking in Paris in the last hour or so, and she says the free movement of people needs to be restored.
We want to protect our external borders in order to have free circulation in Europe and not to have such stricter controls at the frontiers and at the borders. But it's a question of security. We have to know who comes to Europe. And Greece here is very important, and so is Turkey.
Let's go live to Brussels and speak to Elena Casas. Elena, why is restoring the Schengen zone so important to the EU?
Well, one reason is financial. According to the European Commission's own estimates, it could cost European countries 18 billion euros a year in lost trade and the cost of policing borders if Schengen were to collapse and controls were to be introduced widely across the Union. That's at least 1.7 million people who commute to work every day across a Schengen border who would be affected. And their employers, of course, would either have to find other staff or look for another way of doing business. But perhaps the most important aspect of the Schengen freedom of people movement is just the fact that it's the towering achievement of European integration. That's how it was described by EU Vice President Frans Timmermans earlier today, and that's certainly how it was seen by the architects of the European Union as well. The free movement of people was one of the key things that they wanted to achieve, more even than a free trade zone or a common currency. So it's of huge philosophical, almost existential importance to the European Commission that Schengen not collapse. But of course, it looks very vulnerable indeed, with borders springing up across the Union. Now the Commission has announced a roadmap to provide a clear route to preserve it for the future. There are 2 key points. One, the Commission says, is that waving through migrants and refugees from one country to another must stop. That means they're clamping down on countries like Austria and the Balkans, who since last summer have been allowing migrants and refugees to travel through their territory on the way to Germany. Now they say all EU countries should stop people crossing the border if they haven't already applied for asylum in a country where they had the chance to do so. So they want to make it very clear now, the European Commission, that refugees cannot choose in which European country they want to apply for asylum. That is to say, if they arrive in Greece, they must apply in Greece, and other EU countries should stop them crossing the border if they've missed that opportunity. Now that means bringing the Dublin Agreement back into play, which is the agreement that allows EU countries, at least theoretically, to deport third-party nationals to the first EU country that they arrived in. Dublin has been essentially dead, at least since Angela Merkel announced she would welcome Syrians last September. And for Greece, it's been dead for years. Since 2011, other European countries have been banned from deporting people to Greece on the grounds that living conditions for refugees and asylum seekers in that country were so bad. But now Greece is going to be put under intense pressure to improve the living conditions for refugees who do seek asylum in Greece so that other countries can deport people there.
Okay, Elena, many thanks for that answer. Elena Casas joining us there from Brussels.